Hey there, everyone, and welcome to episode 87 of Halfway Through the Heat. And today we are talking about Wrestlemania 11. This was a request by one of our loyal listeners, Mark. And WrestleMania 11, it was a wrestling show that happened. So I'm joined today with my co-host Tom. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm scarred by WrestleMania 11.
The year was 1995. The location, Hartford, Connecticut, the Hartford Civic Center. Bill Clinton was the president. Donald Trump was not even a reality star. The number one song in America was Take a Bow by Madonna. And a young Jerry Seinfeld was teaching us how to laugh. I don't even remember Take a Bow. I had to look it up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I don't remember Take a Bow. What the hell is that? Was that a number one song by Madonna?
That was the number one song, the week of April 2nd, when this WrestleMania was happened.
This is like this is, like 1995? Like long after I had stopped listening to anything on the radio or...
Yeah, it didn't ring a bell for me, but that was the number one jam. So I think the reason Mark suggested it is because this was kind of our hometown WrestleMania, because Joe and I grew up about 8 miles from where this took place. And neither one of us, by the way, attended this WrestleMania in person. We were not big fans of the WWF in 1995.
Yeah, there's actually a good chance that I was homeless at this point. So who knows? No.
This was our junior year of high school. And I'm guessing that weekend we probably went to see a punk rock show in North Windham, Connecticut.
That's most likely what we did, because that's how we spent basically every weekend in 1995.
That is true. Certainly in the springtime. But yeah, so this kind of took me back. You know, I was a teenager when this happened. The 90s fashions of the crowd. This was an odd period for the WWF. Hulk Hogan had left. A lot of their big stars had left. Randy Savage had left. The Ultimate Warrior had flamed out. And this was the new generation era when they were trying to push guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash and Razor Ramon as their new stars. But it wasn't quite working. And as you can tell by the fact that they're having WrestleMania 11 in the Hartford Civic Center, which is normally where they'd have these days they'd normally have a Raw there. This is an interesting WrestleMania. It's often considered the worst WrestleMania of all time.
Is it?
But it's also considered to be the WrestleMania that started to pull WWF back out of the depths, because its main event featured New York Giants linebacker Lawrence Taylor, and it got a huge amount of mainstream media interest, which you can see throughout this show, because one area of the ring is completely clogged with photographers, including a guy who I spotted who worked for the Hartford Courant, who came maybe around this time, came to the high school class that Joe and I had together, the journalism class, and to talk about being a news photographer. And all I remember from that presentation, you may remember this, all I remember from that day is, instead of he's saying I want to show you some of my photographs, I want to show you some of my work, he kept saying my junk.
Oh, I totally remember this.
I really want to show you guys some more of my junk, or I'm gonna bring out my junk and show you guys. You guys are gonna love looking at my junk. And we couldn't look at each other. I mean, the effort to control ourselves.
Oh yeah.
You could being 17 years old, and this guy is like, you guys are gonna love looking at my junk. We couldn't.
You're gonna love when I take out my junk. It's like, don't.
Yeah,
don't,
yeah, seriously.
Don't take out your junk, bro. There are children here.
But that guy is there. He's there among many other mainstream photographers shooting this epic WrestleMania event because of Lawrence Taylor, who we'll get into. So I think that's setting the stage.
This WrestleMania starts with a WrestleMania 11 starring, and then there's this ridiculous list of non-stars. So it's starring Pamela Anderson and Jonathan Taylor Thomas and MTV's Jenny McCarthy, or Jennifer McCarthy as they're calling her in this.
Yeah,
NYPD Blues,
they kept calling her
Nicholas
Jennifer
Turturro.
McCarthy and Pamela Anderson, and it was like they had joined the York Foundation or something.
Yeah, we'll get into more York Foundation talk later because I got
Uh,
notes.
but yeah, like there's the quote unquote stars include Nicholas Turturro, who you may remember from NYPD Blue or may not remember from
We probably don't remember from NYPD Blue at this point.
Musical guest Salt and Pepper, who I have to say, the best musical guests I can recall, Salt and Pepper. I mean, they were legitimately really good. I had to, by the way, though, if you watch it on the network, their musical performance is not included because WWE would have to pay rights fees to them. So I had to go and find it on YouTube, and they make fun of Bam Bam Bigelow and their song. It's worth checking out. But yeah, I think because of the Lawrence Taylor connection, they were like, we got to have a lot of glitz and glam, and they're showing this. It starts off with this like recap of all the celebrities who had been at previous WrestleManias, and it's a long way from like Muhammad Ali to Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yeah. They're in that celebrity cameo thing that the clip they show in the beginning from all the other WrestleManias. There is a little bit of a cameo from our current president.
Yeah, there is. That's right, Donald Trump. He was like a New York tabloid fixture at this point.
He was at WrestleMania 4, right?
Yeah, that's right. Later he'd become president. Never saw that coming. So yeah, there's a crowd full of giant pants because that's what we wore in the 90s. We wore our fucking giant pants, and we wore our bulky sweaters, and we liked it, and our flannel shirts. And then America the Beautiful is sung by this strange individual who looked like Justin Bieber and sounded like Kate Bush.
Tom, you're gonna feel bad when I mentioned that they said at the beginning that this person was a special Olympiad.
Well, I do feel a little bad
for making fun of them.
I stand by my description. There's no reason that anyone should have a Justin Bieber haircut like that. It's crazy, especially in '95. It's crazy.
She was special, Tom. You're making fun of someone who is a special Olympiad. How do you feel?
Thanks for tuning into my heel turn this week.
This was funny because like you could tell that they're really reaching for this like mainstream acceptance with this because like first they're like from the Special Olympics, like Special Olympiad wife couldn't catch her name because they like blurred it all together in between like noise and like all types of mic problems throughout the whole show. But I didn't catch her name. But they, in the background while she was singing, they were playing this video that was like fireworks and American flags interspersed with Special Olympians.
It's something else.
It was ridiculous.
The Special Olympics is a Connecticut thing, by the way. Like they happen here. It started here. I think the headquarters are here. Like it's a big deal in Connecticut. So that might have been the connection.
Yeah,
I should have known that. Said I cut a heel promo on the Special Olympian.
Yeah, way to cut a heel promo on the Special Olympian.
I feel bad.
She sounded really good though.
She did. I mean, obviously she's more accomplished than I will ever be, so that's good for her. But yeah, she sounded fine. She sounded like Kate Bush, like I said. She's got a Justin Bieber haircut. I'm not backing away from that.
Well, if anything, she had it before Justin Bieber. So Justin Bieber has a Special Olympian haircut. How about that?
Yeah, I should point out young Justin, not current day Justin Bieber, but like initial mop top Justin Bieber. That's what her hair looks like. Anyway, our commentary team for the evening is Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler, who was sort of a recent addition to WWF, and who his Memphis territory had just wound down, or was in the process of winding down. It wouldn't wind down until a RICO lawsuit, which is a great way for things in Memphis to end. But anyway, so our first match of the night, you want to start off hot, you want to start off fast, you want to get the crowd into it. Who do you bring out?
Obviously you bring out the Allied Powers, British Bulldog and Lex Luger.
Like, man, this was after the steroid trial, right? I think it was.
Yeah.
But holy cow, those guys, I mean, talk about stepping on the gas. These two giant roided dudes come out.
Yeah, British Bulldog and Lex Luger are like, this match is like an excuse for them to pose.
Yeah. Yeah, and the idea they come out, Lex Luger waving the American flag and British Bulldog waving the British flag, and they got kind of a babyface reaction. I did notice a big sign in the crowd. One guy was holding that said Lex Loser. Lex
good.
just never quite caught on. He was supposed to be the guy, and he was never quite the guy. And their opponents are two gigantic hillbillies, Jacob and Eli Blue, who I believe are the Harris twins.
They are the Harris twins. They were accompanied by their uncle Zebekiah, who, like, if you didn't recognize the Harris twins, the Blue brothers as the Harris twins, I would understand because the Harris brothers are like bald, but like Jacob and Eli Blue come out and they're like got long curly hair and like huge beards, and like when Vince McMahon is on the commentary saying, "Oh, they're twins," I was like, are these just two guys with long hair and beards that you're claiming are twins?" And then I was like, "Oh no, it's actually the Harris twins. They're actually twins."
They actually are twins.
But when they're accompanied by Uncle Zebekiah, who also has long hair and a beard, and he's easily recognizable as Dutch Mantel, who always has that. So
that's right. Or Zeb Coulter for you youngsters who only know him from his work in the WWE.
So Uncle Zebekiah, Zeb, there's his Zeb. Apparently his last name is Coulter.
Currently feuding with Rebby Sky on Twitter.
Uncle Zebekiah Coulter, I guess is his name. His full name. We figured it out.
But yeah, I believe he came up. Maybe I could be wrong about this, but he was a Memphis guy. I think he came up with Lawler when Memphis was folding. But anyway, yeah, and Jacob and Eli Blue are they're announced by the Fink Howard Finkel, who, by the way, for my money, the best ring announcer WWE ever had.
I think I have a comment about that later on, but I totally agree. Howard Finkel, best ring announcer.
Their hometown is the mountains of Appalachia, and I want to point out that the term Appalachia refers to a mountain chain. Everything in Appalachia is the mountains of Appalachia.
Quite do.
It's a mountain chain that extends from Maine to Alabama. It could be from anywhere, although they are hillbillies, and so that's accurate. I can say that because I lived in West Virginia. It's the only state that's entirely within Appalachia, and it's full of hillbillies.
Well, great. It's -1 though since you moved away, huh?
It's true. I was. So brief digression. I lived in a town called Dunbar in West Virginia, and every Thanksgiving there was a football game called the Commode Bowl, and the winning team got a giant toilet as a prize, and the two teams were made up of the Hillsiders, which were people from the hilly part of town, and the River Rats, the people from the flat part of town along the Kanawha River. I lived in the hilly part of town. I am literally a hillbilly. I was a West Virginia hillbilly for 4 years.
You are, you were literally a hillbilly. And,
I was.
West Virginia is at a loss for
having
you left.
I worked every single Thanksgiving day when I lived down there, so I never actually got to see the Commode Bowl, but it's still played. It's it's all Dunbar has going for it.
You know what they're missing now? Their number one possum hunter.
Possums in Connecticut aren't safe since I moved back. So anyway, it's there's not a whole lot to say about this match. The crowd is actually kind of hot for it, but it's a standard WWF 1990s tag team match. Like
you know what this match was? It was like 4 giant ham hocks being slammed together. There was like no. There were barely moves. It was like, you know how little kids had those toy wrestlers, those rubbery ones, and like you just kind of slammed them together to pretend they're wrestling. That's basically what this was, except every once in a while the British Bulldog would do a move.
Yeah, the only one of the 4 who at one point was a good wrestler, although those days were long behind him. He's just so gassed up on steroids. But yeah, it's 4 big dudes colliding. It's kind of how WWF tag team matches were worked for a very long time. It's not spectacular. It's not terrible or anything. It's not. I mean, it's works at the pace they all work at, and there's a weird double team like sunset flip finish with Luger and the Bulldog going over, but that's it. I mean, it's just sort of.
The win was like out of nowhere, and it was just like, okay, I guess they won, so I guess we'll spend the entire length of the match having them pose afterwards.
And there's a pose down, and as they're posing, Vince McMahon says on commentary, "These two are going to be a team for a long, long time." I think that might have been their only match, or something, because Luger was gone shortly after this. Luger was on his way out of the company.
They were a team for 8 months, Tom.
8 months.
Um,
I guess that's a long, long time in WWF terms.
but they had very few matches. I think they lost after this to Men on a Mission and then just never came back. That was it.
Yeah. And then Jim Ross is the on the floor interviewer, and like a stupid role, he like interviews the people who lose the match, right? Which is terrible.
Yeah.
And
but okay, this is like the beginning of the awfulness for the show, because Jim Ross is doing the interviewing. He's interviewing the losers of the match, and
right.
and you can tell that this is going to go poorly because the interview is done entirely in the dark. You cannot see anything. It's basically like a black screen. You can see lights behind them, but you cannot see Jim Ross, and you cannot see anybody he's talking to. So later on, it's fixed. But like in this one, it's just like you can hear Jim Ross's voice over a black screen.
My favorite, it's true. My favorite part about this is when Zeb Coulter angrily says, "I knew that when we came to the big city, we might get hornswoggled." He's referring to Hartford, Connecticut as the big city, which might have been a joke on Zeb's part, but I laughed.
Yeah. It's funny if you've ever been to Hartford, a city I've named the city that always sleeps.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's technically a city, but there's really not.
It's technically
nobody would
a
consider
city,
it.
but it's a city nobody goes to except to maybe go work in an insurance company during the day, and everybody leaves at night.
It's a big city by the standards of West Virginia, but not anywhere else. So anyway, that's the end of that match. And then we cut to NYPD Blue supporting actor Nicholas Turturro, who's also the brother of John Turturro, and he appears to be in the heels dressing room, but we can't really tell what he's doing because he has no audio. There's no audio.
So this is a constant thing. And during this show, first it starts out Nicholas Turturro is in the back and he's talking into a broken mic and nobody can hear him. So then they just cut back to the like panning shots of the crowd, and Jerry Lawler and Vince McMahon are just talking bullshit for like 5 minutes until like the next match starts. They're just like saying random things to kill time while they try to fix the mics. And like the best part about this, okay, this is obviously a setup thing because like Nicholas Turturro is like mugging for the mic and like smiling, and then he's calling over somebody, and Jenny McCarthy comes over, and then they cut away. But later on, that exact same thing happens.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because you're like, oh, okay, this is a redo.
Pretty much. At one point when they're bullshitting, Vince McMahon says, "You never can tell what's going to happen at WrestleMania, and you never can tell what's going to happen with our crack audio crew." And as soon as he said that, I was like, "Oh, people got fired." Like, it's funny because at the time, '95, like unless you really followed the news and you knew about Vince McMahon, the steroid trial and stuff, like he was just a guy on TV. Like you had and you didn't know, like we know so much about Crazy Vince and his weird psyche now. It's hearing that line in 1995, you would have thought, oh, that's just the commentary, that's the play-by-play guy trying to kill time and making a little joke. But now, knowing what we know, we're like, no, fucking when that show was over, he went back and he screamed and raged and fired people.
He probably, like, considering how much the mics were screwed up during this entire show, he would be justified.
He would. No, he would absolutely be justified because it's their biggest show of the year and they can't get any of the audio right or the lighting, as you pointed out. It's kind of a disaster. There's also like, it's really instructive to look at this year's WrestleMania and then go back to this. There's like no elaborate set or anything. The entrance is like one step above maybe what ECW had as like an entrance. Like it's just there's like the pyro is all sparklers. Like there's no. It's such a spectacle now. I mean, they lose money on it every year. It's such a spectacle. They've spent all this time building a set. And in the mid-'90s, it was like basically like a TV show taken up one notch.
Basically, yeah. I mean, had they had the ECW entrance, the like painted brick wall, probably would have upped the production value.
It's true. It's true. They and then we moved to one of the things talking about audio problems. We moved to the next match. They did a weird thing in this where they would have guys cut promos before the match they were just about to wrestle in.
This is
Like
this is
the guys would
exactly
be
what happened at
backstage.
Wrestle Rock.
Yeah. These guys would be backstage and they'd be talking to Vince and Jerry Lawler, like through the camera, and it's a weird, it broke up the rhythm of it. But the first one, of course, the mic didn't work. X-Pac and I'm sorry, the 1-2-3 Kid, Sean Waltman, and Razor Ramon are backstage, and 1-2-3 Kid is talking for Razor Ramon, and you can't hear either of them. Their mic is broken, or the audio's not working. Whatever.
The audio is not working on this. It's slightly working. You can kind of hear it, but not really. It's really soft. And then like they just cut out quickly, but like they fixed the mic right at the end, so you can hear Razor Ramon say something like, "Well, screw this" or something, you know, and like right at the end, it's like right at the end they caught they fixed the mic so you could hear it, but like previously you could not. It was great. They caught the only thing they caught was like in clear audio was like the angry Razor Ramon giving up on the mic.
And this is an Intercontinental Championship match. Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie, who is Road Dogg, Brian James, versus Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid. It's not a tag match, but Jarrett versus Ramon with their seconds.
There were lots of matches with dudes in the corner.
Yes.
Like almost every match. But okay, I want to start this match by saying that Jeff Jarrett comes out as announced from Music City, USA.
Yep.
And he looks fucking ridiculous.
He really does.
I had completely forgotten how stupid Jeff Jarrett looked during this time, and looking at this, I remembered like, oh yeah, this is why Jeff Jarrett looked so stupid then, with his fucking like 6 pairs of suspenders outfit or whatever it is. I don't know. It's like ridiculous. He has long flowing blonde hair and his like his costume, I guess it just looks like he's wearing like 4 pairs of suspenders.
And a big like he has like this huge collar, like a white sequined collar.
Yeah, it's like holding up his suspenders. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean it's he's quite a figure. Another Memphis guy. But I will say this was by far and away the match of the night, like in terms of quality.
You know what? I was gonna say I have in my notes here I have written this match isn't bad, but it's worse than I expected it to be. And like the reason why, like it's not a bad match at all, but I was actually expecting this to be better than it was, only because like I know that these two guys can wrestle, and like it's like one of the only matches on the card where you know both people in the match can actually put on a good match. And watching it, I thought like this is going to be good, but there was so much focus on like who is interfering and who is not interfering and who is stopping interference from happening that like it just took away from the match for me. So like all the time you're just like, oh, you know, it's like, oh no, the roadie is going to interfere. Oh look, here comes 1-2-3 Kid to stop the interference from the roadie. And that happened so much that it was just like, come on. And
yeah. I don't disagree with that. The interference, it's like it's out of control, and you're right. It distracts it in the way because they keep talking about that, and it's one of those WWF commentary problems where they're more interested in something other than the match.
Yeah.
But the match itself without the interference, it's pretty good. It's fast paced. Jarrett and Scott Hall really knew how to wrestle, and they work pretty well together. It gets kind of, there's a lot of like sort of old fashioned sort of Southern style to it. Like Jarrett gets busted open at one point, like legitimately like he's bleeding from the nose, and I enjoyed. See, I have the opposite because I thought this was going to be terrible, but I enjoyed it more than I thought it was going to. So, but the interference just it got out of hand, and eventually there's a DQ. When the roadie comes in, and then 1-2-3 Kid comes in and he starts wailing on dudes flying around, and people shit on X-Pac, but he was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. I don't think he ever.
I
I
almost
think
have
he
the
doesn't
exact
get the
same thing
credit.
in my notes. I almost have the exact same thing in my notes because like the crowd is actually pretty hyped for X-Pac when he comes in. Like he
Yep.
got huge cheers, but also he was he was probably the most exciting part of the match because he was so much faster than everybody else. And like he'd come out and he was like doing his jumping kick thing that he does as the 1 2 3 kid, and he like clears the ring of the other two guys, and he's like kind of hyped. I mean, he's good.
Yeah, in terms of like U.S. like high flyers, like he doesn't get nearly the credit I think he deserves for being a very early adopter of that style. But anyway, so then he gets beat down. Makes a save. It's just kind of a mess. And then the one thing I did like is that fans were so mad they were like running up to the railing, and Hartford cops had to like step in to keep the fans from like going over the railing. You don't see that very often in wrestling anymore. It was kind of fun. Those guys are probably drunk, but it was it's people were mad that 1 2 3 Kid was getting beaten up. He was really over. And of course they bungled later on. They bungled how they handled him, and he left to WCW with everyone else. But um, I don't know. The match showed like it was the glimpse of sort of what could have been. I definitely had the most fun watching this match for the whole show. I mean, and which is bad because it's the second match, by the way.
Yeah,
Um,
this was probably the best match of the night, and it was kind of a disappointment for me. And like that's not even to say it was bad. It wasn't bad. It was just like in the last show I said that there were two matches on this show that were possibly going to be good, and this was the one that I was one of the two that I thought was going to be good. And I was like thinking, okay, at least this match will be good. But actually, like it was less good than I thought it was because of all the interference. So otherwise, if there weren't so much interference, it probably would have been like lived up to my expectation of being just a good match, but did not did not quite make it. But it was still probably the best match of the night. So good job, Jeff Jarrett. Um, he
Razor Ramon.
didn't even call anybody slapnuts.
He did not. He did the strut though.
He did do the strut, and he did
He
do a
also
figure four.
he did the figure four, and it was so nice to see a figure four, not hear 1,000 idiots in the crowd go woo like Ric Flair was the only guy who ever did the figure four. Um, Anyway, after that match, we go backstage once again. Nick Torturo, they finally have the audio. He interviews Jennifer McCarthy. They're calling her Jennifer McCarthy for some reason, who has gigantic 80s hair, even though it's 1995,
Uh,
which is the Midwest, you know,
yeah,
as people are behind the
Jenny
times.
McCarthy does show up in the same way as last time from off screen, like it's a surprise she's there.
Right, right, but now they have audio, so it's just sort of a redo. And then we're away from that, and we're into match number 3, which is King Kong Bundy with Ted DiBiase versus The Undertaker with Paul Bearer. And I looked it up because I was curious. King Kong Bundy was 38. I thought he would have been older, but he got big when he was real young. I mean, in the early 80s, he was because of his size.
Yeah,
But he's 38 in this match, and I mean, his career was. Although we went to. Well, he didn't show up, but we almost went to see him like 7 years later. I can only imagine what that would have been like.
it would have been great.
It would have been great.
But yeah, this is okay. This match was boring, and the Undertaker won like all of a sudden. But this is I wanted to talk about this because this is part of that storyline where Ted DiBiase had the $1 million corporation, and
Yep.
it's full of people that like you don't want in a stable. But King Kong Bundy was one of those guys. Um, like later on, you get to see a bunch of the other members. It's like Nikolai Volkov and Bam Bam and fucking
Erwin Arsheister,
yeah, IRS, Tatanka, Kama, huh?
the Street Fighter.
But this is also the beginning. You can see in the beginning of this match that Ted DiBiase has the urn, Undertaker's urn, which he stole from Paul Bearer. In my notes, I wrote Paul Bearer's name entirely as Percy Pringle the Third, so I had to think about it there for a second. um,
Yeah, there's the subtext of this match is there's a fight over the urn. Remember, because that supposedly controls the Undertaker's power or something.
Yeah, but if the astute among you will recognize this as the beginning of the fake Undertaker thing. So
Uh,
like because Ted DiBiase, King Kong Bundy loses this match, but Ted DiBiase still keeps the urn. And after this is where he brings in the fake Undertaker to join his not York Foundation. I, I
yeah,
want to say
the Undertaker briefly gets the urn back, but then Kama comes out and takes it from Paul Bearer. And I wrote in my notes, God Almighty, I do not care about this.
yeah, this was awful. And the thing with this is that what's it called? I all the while I'm thinking this isn't the York Foundation. Where's the computerized man of the '90s?
That's right.
And
Where's the computerized man of the 90s?
but basically, the York Foundation thing was from like 1992, and this is 1995. So this is almost a blatant ripoff of a WCW faction in WWE, like a couple years later. And it includes members from the York Foundation, like or a member at least,
Yeah, it's IRS. That's right.
IRS, who was Michael Wall Street in the York Foundation. So I'm wondering if this was just like IRS was just like, hey, let's do that York Foundation thing with the $1 Million Man instead, and not have a computer. Not
The
having a
computer
computer.
made the York
Yeah,
Foundation.
I was just gonna say that the computer is the best part.
That's right, because there's nothing more villainous to a hillbilly than a computer.
The
Yeah,
the computerized man of the '90s is what they needed to make this over, and they could have turned Tatanka into the computerized man of the '90s.
and
What
frankly,
was
it would
he
have been
doing
better than
otherwise?
being Tatanka, or they could have turned Kama into the computerized man of the 90s.
They could have turned Nikolai Volkov into the computerized man of the '90s instead of what he was in this, which was like dude in
Grandpa
a
in a tuxedo shirt.
dude in a tracksuit or whatever the hell it was. I don't really know. Uh,
Awful. Uh, this match, by the way, I looked it up. This match is 6 minutes 36 seconds long. It feels like it's an hour. It's such a bad match, and it features King Kong Bundy throws the two weakest clotheslines I have ever seen in a wrestling match in my life. Like I mean, you can watch the Sparkle Showcase on Shine, where it's like two trainees awkwardly, clumsily going through training routines, and they look better than King Kong Bundy throwing these two clotheslines at the Undertaker. Awful,
yeah,
awful.
this match was really bad, really boring, and it ended suddenly too. I wonder
It did.
if it's the kind of thing where someone's like, cut this shit out, get it out of here.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, because I can see why they'd want to end it really quickly because the exciting segment we went to next. We really want to get to that. We're backstage once again with Nicholas Turturro, who's interviewing Steve McMichael.
all I have in my notes in all caps is Mongo.
This is before he would go to WCW and become the Mongo that we know and love. But it's him and a bunch of other NFL guys from the late 80s and early 90s who are there to help Lawrence Taylor. And
I
they cut promos on wrestlers. And a couple of those guys actually do pretty good in the promos.
I have
Uh,
no idea who any of these football dudes are except for Mongo, and I only know Mongo because he was in WCW.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys who like legitimately like Reggie White, like a couple of guys who are like legitimately big stars, but some of them were just sort of well-known NFL players at the time who haven't really um, didn't exactly have a sort of a lasting reputation, but they're all known guys. But Nick Turturro is interviewing the football players because he's trying to find Pamela Anderson. So this is the stupid like this happened at SummerSlam, the summer's biggest party. SummerSlam 2007, where they had this ongoing thing like, are we going to find the woman who claims Vince fathered her illegitimate child? That the missing person in this case, WrestleMania 11, is Pamela Anderson. She's gone. We don't know where she is. So Nicholas Turturro, because he's a detective, get it from NYPD Blue. Nicholas Turturro is trying to find her, and so he talks to football players. Has no luck there, and then he goes into a dressing room to find Bob Backlund playing chess with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was a child star on Home Improvement, and this is the only time I think in WWF television in which Supreme Court Justice William Rehnquist is name checked, because I guess Bob Backlund's gimmick at this point was that his gimmick essentially is that he was who Rip Rogers is now. He's a guy who hates anything new or different or young. And so he's complaining that young people don't have respect for their elders anymore. And he asks Jonathan Taylor Thomas to name like some some like current events questions, and he asks him to name the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And of course, Jonathan Taylor Thomas gets all the answers right, which infuriates Bob Backlund. It's awful. I mean, it's terrible. I hated watching it. I hated that I had to watch this. I just felt like minutes of my life leeching away as Nicholas Turturro had to sit there and watch these two fucking amateurs pretend to act.
I like angry Bob Backlund.
Yeah. I mean, I love Bob Backlund. I always have love for Bob. He was the first pro wrestler I ever met in my life when I was like 4 years old. But like anyway, this was not his high point. But pretty soon we're away from the backstage shenanigans, and we're going into our fourth match, which is the Smoking Guns, who are tag team champions. That's Billy Gunn and Bart Gunn. It's an earnest, mulleted babyface Billy Gunn, very different from the Mr. Ass you may remember from the late '90s, D-Generation X. He's a good old down-home country boy with a hilarious.
Their gimmick is that they're cowboys.
Yes, they're cowboys. I mean, he and Bart Gunn are cowboys.
That's
and
it.
They're wrestling.
They're cowboys.
They're wrestling Owen Hart and a mystery partner who turns out to be Yokozuna, accompanied to the ring by Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji. This this match actually wasn't horrible. The Smoking Guns work well together as a tag team. Owen Hart, of course, is a fantastic wrestler. And, Yokozuna, all he has to do in a tag match is stand on the apron and be the terrifying monster who they want to keep out of the ring.
Yeah, see, this was... I have this in my notes that, like, the parts with Owen wrestling these dudes is actually pretty good. And the Smoking Guns do work as a team. And and watching these dudes, like, this whole match, I just felt bad for Bart Gunn. Not because, like, he does anything bad in this match or, like, anything bad really happens to him. He doesn't even take the pin. It's that he's like probably the better wrestler out of the Smoking Guns, and then like that whole Brawl for All thing just killed him. He was gone after that. But like he's actually a pretty good wrestler, and I was thinking Bart Gunn is like a missed opportunity here, because like watching this match, like he looks better than Billy Gunn. He's a better wrestler. He has like. I don't know why he didn't do well. I do know, because he lost the Brawl for All thing.
That's right.
To Butterbean. That's it. I mean, I don't know why they thought that would be a good idea, but whatever. Killed
Brawl for All. Brawl for All is one of the worst. Like, I refuse to do it for this thing where we do a deep dive. Like, it was one of the worst ideas they ever came up with. But it showed that Bart Gunn, by the way, is like a legitimate badass, because like they were shoot fights, and he won all of them. And the winner got to go and face Butterbean, and that's where it ended, because Butterbean was a real professional boxer, and in a boxing match, the professional boxer was going to win, and he won in seconds.
Yeah, he won in like 17 seconds or something stupid like that. Because like, what do you expect? You can't like put a non-trained fighter against the boxer in a boxing match.
No.
I mean, you could if it were like a wrestler versus boxer match, like a Inoki versus Muhammad Ali type of thing. But like, if you're just going to be like, okay, you're the wrestler, you can only box against the boxer,
right?
You're not going to do well. And
no, I mean,
did not go well.
You can go online and like, it's a GIF on Twitter, Bart Gunn getting his lights turned out by Butterbean with a single punch. It's brutal. But yeah, I feel bad because Bart Gunn he was legitimately talented. Like, he wouldn't have been a big star or anything, but like, he could have been like a hot dude of the mid card. But yeah, because they really do have like good tag team chemistry. Like, this is one thing WWF was never all that good at, is having actual tag teams that work as a team and have like moves they do together. And the Smoking Guns had that down. It's not a bad match, honestly. The heels win, and that this was the beginning of Owen and Yoko's run as tag team champs. But I was pleasantly surprised by this match, I will say.
Yeah, this match was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But I mean, to be honest, I thought it was going to be a steaming pile of dog shit, and it was not.
Yeah, that's true.
It was. I expected it to be horrible. But I will say that the Smoking Guns were a lot better than I remember them being,
Yep.
and because Yokozuna wasn't in the ring all that much, like there was actually wrestling going on.
Yep.
That was exciting. I mean,
I
anytime
think
Yokozuna came in the ring, any attempts at wrestling just ended. It was just like, okay, let's punch and maybe try a drop kick.
he was very limited. He was no Umaga, to whom he's related, by the way, because Yokozuna is not Japanese. He was Samoan.
Of course.
Of course. Uh, yeah, it wasn't a terrible match at all. I think I didn't like the Smoking Guns. Like, I ignored them at the time because I hated the cowboy thing. Like, now, years later, being more mature, I can appreciate that they were good wrestlers. I just, at the time when I was a teenager, I was like, I was watching ECW. I was like, oh, fucking cowboys.
Yeah, yeah.
After the match, we get a backstage interview with Bam Bam Bigelow, which gives a chance for them to recap the Lawrence Taylor angle, which started at Royal Rumble in January when Bam Bam Bigelow shoves Lawrence Taylor and then blah, blah, blah. Bigelow was surprisingly not that good at this promo. I remember him being better in ECW. Like, I don't know what it was, but he just seemed kind of out of it.
Yeah, he kept repeating himself, which was the problem. I think like they were.
That's true.
It's just like he kept saying the same thing over and over again. It's like he had a promo in his mind,
Yeah.
but it was like half the length it needed to be, and so he was just like, well, I guess I'll do it again.
Yeah, it's like when I tell professors I work with in my job, like when they're doing interviews with the media, to like write down 3 points they want to get across, and you can always tell the good ones because they sort of are able to like weave those points into a conversation. The bad ones just repeat things on a note card over and over. That's what Bam Bam's promo felt like to me.
Yeah, it's too bad. I don't know what happened to Bam Bam Bigelow. Well, I mean, I know he's dead, but like, I mean, I'm saying like I don't know what happened to him in the WWE because he wasn't really there that long.
No,
Um, and
he's
he
he's
was
main eventing WrestleMania.
yeah, he's main eventing WrestleMania, and then like he's gone, and he was in ECW after this, and like he was in WCW too, but only for a short time. He must have like a really bad attitude or some shit because like he was like gone from everywhere really quickly.
I think he did have a bad attitude actually.
But he was I mean, he's like a pretty good wrestler. He's like a big guy, but he's agile. He's like always doing that cartwheel and stuff. You know, like
Yep.
you don't see many like dudes that look like him doing cartwheels.
No, he was, especially in ECW, like when he could really show his stuff. He was a really good wrestler, but yeah, I think attitude was part of the problem. I think he was backstage not a pleasure to deal with.
But he was Bam Bam is, you know, like kind of underrated, even though like he's kind of highly rated. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I, I mean, not that he gets to show any of his wrestling abilities in this WrestleMania, but like, you know, just seeing him, I just remember like, man, remember when Bam Bam was like fighting Hulk Hogan?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like he really did have some very high profile spots, but he was not around for very long. And while we're talking about sort of underrated, I do want to put in a word. Vince McMahon, you know, it's people hate him, and you know, often with good reason, but he was not terrible on commentary. This is a point where he's transitioning from okay to terrible, and he almost will
Yeah,
do it in the course of like a sentence. When he's just like being a play-by-play guy, like Marv Albert, like someone he had watched in the 70s, and he's just calling the action, he's perfectly fine. And compared to today's commentary, which is ruined by Vince, he's better because he's actually telling you what's happening in the match, and he's talking about like why, like, oh, it's tremendous pressure on the shoulder, that kind of thing, and like he's helping fill in details. But throughout the show, he's getting to the point where like the Vince from the mid 90s, where he's just screaming all the time. And he'll do it sometimes in the course of one sentence. Like, he'll be calling the action, and he'll be like, there's Owen Hart whipping the can. Oh, is he going to go down? No, he's not. He's back in it. Like, he's just... It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the same guy, like, just warring with each other.
see, I've never thought like Vince McMahon was horrible on commentary. I mean, he gets worse as time goes on, but like I always
Yes.
preferred the chemistry between Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura.
100%.
Be,
Yes.
it's always great because like it must have been hilarious for Jesse Ventura because he's constantly making fun of Vince McMahon.
Yep.
Um, we should watch one of the older ones where they're the commentary team because
Oh
like
yeah.
he is, like Jesse Ventura takes like spares no opportunity to make fun of Vince McMahon on commentary. So like it must be the funniest thing to just be like constantly mocking your boss on national television.
Yeah, those were great. We should definitely watch one of those. He and Lawler have okay chemistry. I will say Lawler is a lot better here than he gets in the Attitude Era, when he's just sort of like told to like turn up the horn dog kind of like scumbag persona, and like in this one when he's just sort of
I I
he's the
don't know that that's a
staple.
persona.
Yeah, I guess when they just be yourself, Jerry. Nah, puppies. Uh, Here he's much more restrained, and he's just kind of the typical like guy who's cheering for the heels and rooting against the faces. He's not spectacular, but he's not like distracting from the matches, which he definitely did in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
So commentary's not bad. What is bad is the next match, which is Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund in an I Quit match with Roddy Piper as the guest referee. Roddy Piper gets maybe the biggest pop of the night. I have to say, for some reason I thought this might have been a good match, but what I should have noted is the I Quit stipulation.
Yeah, see, I remember last week when you were saying like that was going to be a good match, and I was saying no, I don't think that one's a good match. I think there's something about it that's shitty, and I'd forgot that it was an I Quit match too. But I remember this match being not good, and when this match started and it was an I Quit match, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why this match sucked, and it sucked.
Every I Quit match sucks because the flow is always interrupted by the referee running over with a microphone. And Roddy Piper he's a camera hog, so he's constantly running over with the microphone. He's not like waiting for shit to happen. He's constantly running over and yelling, "What do you say? What do you say?" Like it's the whole like the flow. There's no flow. The whole match is just like a series of submissions. Because the idea, which I guess is sort of quote unquote realistic, the idea is they just want to win as fast as possible, and the way to do that is to put the guy in a painful submission that makes him want to quit. It makes for a super boring match, though.
Yeah, this match was, like the actual parts of the wrestling parts are good for the match. It's not like the wrestling is bad. It's just that the pacing of this match is terrible, and there's no story to it. It's just like let's try and slap on a submission first. It's basically it. So like, what could have been a good match, and like they do things that are good in the match, like Bob Backlund is constantly countering the sharpshooter. So like that's all right. I thought like the parts where they're doing that kind of all the counters and stuff is good, but like there's no story to it. It's just like basically it's the theme of the match is the story. We're gonna just put a submission on. That's it. That's the entire match. It's like 10 minutes of like them trying to put submissions on each other, and then eventually Bret Hart wins with the crossface chicken wing.
So Bret Hart wins, and Bob Backlund, it's kind of ambiguous. He doesn't say "I quit." He just kind of screams, and it sounds like he might be saying yes. And so I thought when that happened, I'm like, oh, okay, what they're doing is they're setting up the next match where Backlund is going to say like, oh, I never quit. I was saying no, you guys screwed me over. And I thought, well, that makes sense. It's not a bad way to end an I quit match. But then, as Backlund's leaving, Jim Ross goes up to him and is like, Bob Backlund, you said I quit. I never thought I'd hear you say those words, I quit. And I was like, he didn't, Jim. And for some reason, either Backlund blew the finish, or I don't know what happened, but instead of what I thought was actually initially good booking, turned out to be no bad booking.
That's what I'm like right out with you on this, because that's what I thought they were going for. I thought they were going to be like, he never said I quit. He just like made some noises, and then Jim Ross would run over and be like, I never thought you'd quit, and he was like being like really obvious about it, like, I never thought I'd hear you say that, Bob Backlund. You said I quit in the middle of the ring. Why did you say that? What is the matter with you?
Right.
And like,
yeah,
you'd expect him to be like all angry Bob Backlund, being like, I never said it. This is garbage, But
yes.
like, he never does that. He just like he says something like, I've seen the lights or something, and he just stumbles off.
Yeah, he pretends that like Bret Hart has beaten him so bad that he's like hallucinating. He's like, did you see the lights, Jim? Did you see the lights? And I was totally baffled. Because the booking, it seemed like they were doing something that made sense. And I don't know if it was Backlund. I don't know if it was just they gave everyone bad material to work with, which is probably the truth. But it, like, instead of like, oh, okay, this sets up another match, it's not a bad idea. you're just like, well, what happened there? Because the effect is everyone who saw it sees that he doesn't say I quit, but now you're telling us he said I quit. Like this was a bad match, really start to finish. I mean, like you said, like the holds and stuff are applied well, but it's not really a wrestling match. It's just sort of a weird series of holds with Roddy Piper putting a microphone in front of people.
Yeah, this was the kind of thing where this was the other match that I was like expecting to be all right, but even though like I remembered it not being all right, I was like, well, maybe this one at least has the potential to be good. And maybe I just didn't recognize it before, but actually I was right. I was right. It was not good. And
No, it's not a good match.
But I wasn't really disappointed with this in the sense that like I had went into it with the hopes that it would be good, but expecting it to be bad, and then it was bad, and I was just like, oh, okay, I vindicated myself.
After that confusing finish, backstage, more bullshit with Nick Torturo looking for Daniel Anderson. In my notes, I just wrote, I hate watching this.
Like, in my notes, I wrote, still technical difficulties with poor mic levels and mic buzzing. Sort it out,
true.
WWF. That's what I wrote.
But then we're into the sixth match, which is a heavyweight championship match. Shawn Michaels comes out with Jennifer McCarthy, who has joined the York Foundation apparently, and Sid Vicious. Jonathan Taylor Thomas is the timekeeper. Nicholas Torturo is the ring announcer, which is a mistake. Howard Finkel should be the ring announcer. Not that Torturo does a bad job, but Howard Finkel's like the best in the business. Why do you have somebody else do that job?
Well, before this match, though, Todd Pettengill is in the back interviewing Diesel.
No, that's
and in
right.
my notes, I wrote, I wonder why Diesel wasn't a popular champion. Wait. No, I don't.
He is not. He's not great in the mic. He would get better in WCW, but he's not. Well, the thing about Kevin Nash is like his natural character is like cocky heel, and here he's trying to be earnest babyface, and it does not come across well.
It does not work. It's terrible. And I don't know because like he's like edgy cool, like Big Daddy Cool thing is like doesn't work as a babyface.
No, it doesn't.
So like when he says it, you just think like, what the fuck is the matter with you? And then the interview is terrible, and then you have this the long introduction for like all these people in their corner. Shawn Michaels comes out with Jennifer McCarthy and Sid Vicious, and there's a special timekeeper, Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
That's right, young Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Nicholas Torturo.
And then Diesel comes out eventually.
But what's this?
The shock of the night. The shock. I'm air quoting like crazy here. Diesel comes out with Pamela Anderson, who was previously seen, who was supposed to have come out with Shawn Michaels originally. He stole his girl, Tom.
What? That would have been like, I mean, it would not have been good, really. But it would have made more sense if Shawn Michaels came out without a girl, in which case his girl would have really been stolen. Instead, he comes out with a different Playboy blonde. Like it's typical Vince overkill ruining the storyline. Although I did appreciate during the entrance, Jerry Lawler, clearly a love-struck Jerry Lawler, said, "Shawn Michaels is every girl's dream."
Yeah.
Or we could do a fact check on that. I don't know. I do love the absolute dire state of Shawn Michaels' theme song, "Sexy Boy." Like I love that he still uses it. I mean, it's one of the worst theme songs in wrestling history. I love it for that reason.
It's awful. It's just terrible. It's not even so bad it's good. It's just bad.
It's bad. But this, by the way, was a match in our long search for a great Kevin Nash match. This is a match that multiple people had told us to check out. I think maybe Kevin Nash himself. That time I asked him at Enfield. I think this is maybe the one he was. I can't remember.
This is that match, isn't it?
I think it is.
This is the match that Kevin Nash himself told us to watch as like his best match. This match.
It may be his best match.
This might be his best match. This match is awful. And like I wrote a lot of notes on this match because because this is the match that people told us we had to watch as the match that, like, will prove that Diesel has had a good match or Kevin Nash has had a good match. And I'm watching this match, and first of all, first thing I noticed, Shawn Michaels is hamming it up for the cameraman, like, so hard.
Oh yeah.
He is like doing ridiculous selling always by the cameraman, and then he's like did this stupid thing where he like slid out of the ring very slowly in front of the cameraman. In order to like get good shots of him like hanging from the ropes and then hanging off the side of the ring and then falling. It was just like so obviously him like mugging to the cameras. And then like the beginning of the match, it was like everything Shawn Michaels did was like done by the rule of three. And I mean that like he would do all moves in a series of 3 times, with the third one always being a failure. And then I wrote, dive! Crowd is chanting for Sid. Dive! That was like, there you go, Rip Rogers. It's all you.
Yeah, there you go. Rip Rogers.
There was lots of dives, in this match. But the crowd, this is great because to prove how over Diesel was as their face champion, he is down outside the ring, and the crowd is chanting for Sid.
Yeah.
Like, they want Sid to beat up the face champion outside of the ring. This is, like, Sid is, like, slowly creeping over there like he's gonna do something, and the crowd is chanting for Sid to beat up Diesel.
Yeah.
I don't know why Diesel was the champion for so long.
It was a disastrous reign, arguably the worst in WWF history.
So, Shawn Michaels does virtually every wrestling move in this match. There are almost no moves that are actual wrestling moves done by Diesel.
Well, are you forgetting the sidewalk slam, my friend? It's the ultimate move.
I'm not. But it's like the only move he hits. There is a nice flying elbow from Shawn Michaels. Dive! Diesel does a move, something, that even Vince McMahon has no name for. He does something that just looks like a awkward throw, and Vince McMahon on commentary has no name, and he calls it, "That was an interesting offensive maneuver from Diesel." There is, let's see, Shawn Michaels puts him in a sleeper hold where, they did like a literal Hulk out where Diesel shook his hands like Hulk Hogan does to Hulk out of the sleeper hold. And then this is like the stupidest thing in the match. Dumbest idea for this match. Ref bump. Shawn Michaels hits the super kick and doesn't get the pin.
I know.
This is so dumb because that's his face spot. That's like, this is the thing where Diesel should hit his finisher and not be able to get the pin because of a ref bump. Like, nobody cares if Shawn Michaels doesn't get the win during the ref bump. It's the kind of thing where, like, why would the heel be the victim of the ref bump? It doesn't make any sense. And, like, you figured, like, if they were going to do that, like, maybe after the match he's going to lose and get angry at Sid Vicious for causing the ref bump. But, like, that didn't even happen. So, like, it was just a stupid idea in the middle of the match where, like, the heel has something bad happen to him and nobody cares because it's the heel.
WWF has a weird, and this must be a Vince McMahon psychological thing, like, they have a weird history of stuff like that where, like, there'll be a handicap match. They still do this today. There'll be, like, a handicap match and there'll be, like, 2 faces and heel, and you're like, wait. So the heel is now the sympathetic underdog? I think it's because, like, Vince is such a sociopath. He sees himself, like, I don't know. I don't want to get into Vince's mind, but, like, it's just, he doesn't, you're absolutely right in that it's such elementary, like, wrestling storytelling, but reversed, and in a way that makes no sense whatsoever, because Shawn Michaels absolutely wins this match, but he's deprived of that win because of the ref bump, which is what should happen to babyface.
Yeah, so, like, what do you do with that? You just, like, I guess Diesel is the champ still, even though technically he would have lost. That's dumb. It makes the champion look weak, and it makes the heel sympathetic. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? And I want to point out here that I'm saying that like Diesel hit no moves in this match. He might have hit a sidewalk slam,
He
but
definitely hit a sidewalk slam. How dare you?
but the thing is, he only has like 3 moves that he does, and he screwed up all of them except the sidewalk slam. And the thing with this is, he screwed up his own finisher in this match. He goes,
Yeah.
he wins with the jackknife. The jackknife. I'm again air quoting furiously here because he doesn't hit the jackknife. He like lifts up Shawn Michaels and sort of screws it up and drops him. And then they just called it the jackknife, and he pins and wins. But like, watch this. Go watch this match and watch the finish. Diesel does not hit a jackknife. He does not. He just screws up the move, and they call it a jackknife, and he wins. It doesn't make any sense.
He basically picks up Shawn Michaels and drops him on his side. It's not really like you can tell he's going for the power bomb, but he doesn't get it up, and he basically like maybe I don't know what the problem was, but he nearly like legit injures Shawn Michaels because of the way he drops him. But yeah, this was not a good match. I didn't have the extensive notes. I don't disagree with anything you said, but
remember when we were talking about this match originally, and you're like, maybe it'll be a good Shawn Michaels match, not a good Diesel match. It's not even a good Shawn Michaels match. This is just not a good match.
He definitely does. He does all the work in the match for sure.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels does all the work in the match, but he's like he's just like trying to ham it up for the cameras the whole time that he's like not, that match against Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan where Shawn Michaels is like ridiculously selling.
Yep.
Like half of that match is like this. Half of this match is like that, I mean. Said that in reverse. But Shawn Michaels does like these ridiculous sells for Diesel in this and it's all just like mugging for the cameramen, but like it's so stupid. And and like I said, the first half of the match where he's like doing these he was like doing everything 3 times and failing on the third one. It happened like 3 times in a row, I think that happened. And then there was like he did good stuff, like I mean all the diving, for example.
The dives, which we're not supposed to do. This is a good comparison. This match is a good comparison with the SummerSlam Wembley main event with Bret Hart and the British Bulldog. Bret Hart, of course, Shawn Michaels' great rival, and that is a match where Bret Hart does all the work. Absolutely. The British Bulldog is blown up like 2 minutes into the match because he's so pumped up on steroids, and Bret Hart does everything and carries the British Bulldog to a phenomenal match. Like, it's a really good wrestling match. And you go back and watch it, and it's one guy working by himself, essentially, with like a 230-pound weight on his back.
And basically, it's like a DDT match with a blow-up doll.
Yes, but it's a good match. It's a 4-star match, easily. But this match could have been the same thing. Shawn Michaels is working by himself, and Shawn Michaels can absolutely carry people to good matches. But you're right, he just doesn't fucking care. He's just too busy goofing off. This, I think, was the height of like his cocaine years, but like he's too busy goofing off, and he's too busy like posing for the cameras. And also the booking of this match was worse. Like the whole thing where the heel gets screwed on the ref bump is terrible. But like he could have had the kind of match Bret Hart had. Granted, British Bulldog is a better wrestler than Kevin Nash, but this could have been a much better match. But Shawn Michaels just sort of fucks around too much to make it a good match. I mean, when he finally gets into it, he does good stuff. The second half of this match is far better than the first half, but it's still
true.
Bad.
But it's only because of Shawn Michaels, though. Like the second half of the match, Diesel does not hit a single move that's an actual wrestling move.
Oh my god! If you keep slandering the sidewalk slam, I am gonna go nuts.
Hey, that was in the first half of the match.
No, that was in the second half because he caught Shawn Michaels coming off the top rope. And I will say this: it's a well-delivered sidewalk slam, but that's it.
But like if you're a dude with only 3 moves, you'd figure you'd get all of them every time perfect.
Well, particularly the finishing move, which is going to end your 20-minute championship match.
Yeah, especially your finisher, which it's like this. Anybody who recommended this match as the best, including you, Kevin Nash.
I know you're listening.
If this was your best match, then jeez, think about that.
Yeah, it's not a good match. I did like that. Like clearly, whatever they told Jenny McCarthy, she just didn't give a fuck about. Because what she's like cheering for Kevin Nash. By the end, when he's like hulking out of it, she's like cheering along with Pam Anderson. She doesn't give a shit. Like, good for her. I mean, who fucking cares? But
No,
anyway, the match
that was.
ends.
I took that as being like that part of Rocky 4 when Rocky is fighting Ivan Drago in Russia, and then by the end of the match, the Russians are cheering for Rocky.
Maybe. Well, because after the match, so Diesel wins with the non-jackknife. Diesel wins by dangerously dropping his friend. And then Shawn Michaels and Sid leave, and then Jenny McCarthy and Pamela Anderson get in the ring, and they're going to party with Diesel. And then there's backstage, Sid and Michaels are interviewed, and Sid not good at the impromptu interview, as is famous. I mean, he's famously bad at promos, and he gives kind of a bad one here. But the whole match it was just not a good match. It's interesting. It's not boring, really. Like the other matches are boring, but like this is interesting because it's so bad in such a weird way. Like it's because you're watching Shawn Michaels fuck around in like a kind of like a dickhead way. Like he's good enough to have a good match, but he's not going to do it. It's really interesting to see that. You don't often see that in wrestling.
Yeah. It's I don't understand why people love that match. I honestly don't.
I don't either. It's not a great match. We're still in search of a great Kevin Nash match.
I think our search has ended. We've exhausted all the recommendations, including the one directly from the man himself.
Kevin Nash. At least it was kind of an interesting car crash. The next match, the main event, already the main event, and if there's one thing to be said for WrestleMania 11, it's that it's short. It's not even 3 hours long.
It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's shorter than an episode of Raw.
I wonder if it's shorter. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes on the network, but I wonder if that's because they cut out all the Salt and Pepper stuff and.
There's just one Salt and Pepper song, so like at most it was 2.5 hours.
Well,
and it's like it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and like fully 20 minutes of that is backstage bullshit.
Yeah, but so we have LT versus Bam Bam Bigelow, and they first they bring out a bunch of football goons that I don't know except for Mongo.
No, first they bring out the $1 Million Corporation.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did bring out the.
It's kind of a lumberjack match, but not really.
Yeah, because the lumberjacks can't do anything.
Right. So it's just like a bunch of big dudes standing around the ring. First, the $1 Million Corporation comes out, and then a bunch of NFL guys, including Reggie White and Steve McMichael, come out.
Yeah. Not York Foundation comes out, and Football Goons come out. And the best part of the match happens when Bam Bam Bigelow comes out, and he scares off Salt and Pepper.
Right, but then they square up to him. Peppa has to hold Salt back because she's gonna whip Bam Bam Bigelow's ass. Which
that was the best part.
I would have liked to have seen that.
I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen the Salt and Pepper versus Bam Bam Bigelow match, as opposed to the Lawrence Taylor Bam Bam Bigelow match that actually happened.
Yeah. So, LT's obviously not playing football at this point, but his career had only recently ended. He's still in really good shape, but he essentially is taught how to be a wrestler in like 2 months, and you actually need a little more time than that.
Yeah, you do, but also you may have noticed that on the commentary, Vince McMahon was hyping that LT has been being trained every day by Diesel, and I thought like, oh well, this is gonna suck.
That explains it.
But in defense of LT here, he actually hit more moves in the match than Diesel did in his match. So I guess that training paid off because LT hit more actual wrestling moves than Diesel did.
As non-wrestlers and wrestling matches go, this wasn't horrible. It was better than Snooki. I'd argue better than the Floyd Mayweather Big Show confrontation.
Was it better than that dude from the Arrow TV show?
He wasn't bad. No, I think that guy was actually better than LT. He was pretty
That guy was.
good.
He did some actual stuff. So
Yeah, he was
I
surprisingly good. Um,
um LT was more. Okay, like remember when Mongo used to wrestle in WCW?
yep.
Basically, LT had the same exact wrestling style,
Yeah.
just like lots of hitting people, and then every once in a while, like do some kind of sloppy move, and like I'm saying that LT hit more moves than Kevin Nash, but he wasn't much cleaner in his execution. He did hit
No.
a really sloppy gut wrench suplex though, and he did hit a lot of
Yes, he did.
forearms. Um, I
Yeah, a
will
lot of
give it.
work punches.
I will give him this. His forearms looked stiff as all hell. I
Yeah.
imagine that he was really just hitting Bam Bam Bigelow in this because like they looked really hard.
He might have been.
If
And
they if
I
they
wouldn't be
weren't
surprised if Bam Bam Bigelow was just hit me.
yeah if they weren't really hard hits, I'll give him a lot of credit for making them look realistic because it looked just like he was smashing the hell out of Bam Bam.
Yeah.
Um,
And Bam Bam, to his credit, like really sold very well. Like he did not. This is one of those tricky things in wrestling. Like in the beginning, all of the $1 Million Corporation guys are like trying to get in the ring, and the football players are just like easily tossing them around. And I could tell like Jim Cornette was backstage just seething because it makes the business look bad if you have all these non-wrestlers come in. And so some guys have an attitude about that, and some guys are difficult about that. But to his credit, Bam Bam had a job, and he did the job very well, which is make Lawrence Taylor look good. Um,
yeah, it worked out pretty well. I think Bam 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 did a really good job with this match in the sense that like he doesn't have a lot to work with, and he probably did as well as he could. And like he did hit his finisher and like inexplicably rolled off holding his knee only to roll back on like a second later and get a two.
right.
Um it's the kind of thing where like, oh, I guess like this is the spot to make him look like he would have won if it wasn't for that pesky injury or whatever.
Yeah.
Um it was dumb and this wasn't a good match. I'm not but like it could have been awful, like awful beyond awful. And instead it was just really terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst match of the night, which is
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is a credit.
it wasn't the worst match of the night, but it wasn't a very good match.
A
Um,
credit to Bam Bam and LT that they did not have the worst match in the card, but not a good match. Not the certainly not the best WrestleMania main event of all time.
um, Lawrence Taylor did win this match with a lot of forearms. That's basically
He did.
what happened.
Yeah, he did.
That's
This was and yeah, I mean, it was what it was. It served its purpose. It gave the WWE a lot of mainstream attention. Um, it'd be a couple of years before they would really turn things around, but they would start putting into place, not long after this, but they would start putting into place, starting in '96, they would really start putting into place what they needed to get better. So this is sort of an interesting relic of that very bad time in WWE's history when they were in such dire straits that they had to put WrestleMania in the Hartford Civic Center.
this is the area. This is the era when WCW was just getting ready to start crushing them.
Yep. Yep. Nitro had launched, or was just about to launch, I think, and things would really start picking up for WCW. But yeah. So thank you, Mark, for this suggestion. I guess our overall rating is F. This was a failure. Um,
There were almost no good matches on this show, and I had predicted that
I
last
gotta tell
time.
you,
Man.
I gotta
Well,
tell you, I've seen a lot of like bad wrestling, so that's sort of like I can handle bad wrestling. The stuff that killed me on this show was the backstage stuff. Like there's so much of it, and I just hate it. It's not funny, it's not clever, but it's part of like Vince McMahon's weird conviction that he's a movie maker. Um, so we have these dumb comedy skits. Like I hated it, and I can only imagine sitting in the Hartford Civic Center, a building I've been to many times, including for wrestling, but and just like having to like fucking watch this stuff on the jumbotron and thinking, when is this going to be over? When are they just going to wrestle? When am I going to get to see the Allied Powers? That's who I came to see.
Well, if you had came to see the Allied Powers, you could have left after the first match, and you would have saved yourself a lot of heartache and pain.
Should have come. Actually, we should have stayed for the Smoking Guns and been pleasantly surprised.
That's true.
I wonder what would our 17-year-old selves have made of this if we had watched. I mean, we probably would have hated it far more than we do at this point.
That's true. I couldn't imagine liking this then, especially considering I was like pretty much only watching ECW at this point.
Yeah, I think we really would have hated like beyond like contempt for this show. But it's not like, I don't know. I'm not that kind of angry young man anymore. This is not a show that you need to watch. Like some people, when WrestleMania or SummerSlam or Royal Rumble are coming up, people will go back and on the network and they'll watch a whole bunch of past ones. This is not one you need to watch. You
can skip this one. You can feel free to never watch WrestleMania 11.
We did it for you.
Unless you really want to see a terrible example of a jackknife powerbomb.
Yeah, that's true. That's a 20-minute match, by the way, so if you want to watch it because you want to see some comedy with weird Shawn Michaels, just strap yourself in because it's 20 minutes long.
Yeah, it's not... It's kind of painful. If you want to see the Harris twins with long hair and beards, maybe that'll...
If you want to get a glimpse of Jenny McCarthy's insanely huge hair, maybe you thought I was going to say something else, but I was hair. Insanely huge hair. It's weird. It's like this was 1995, and she looks like she just stumbled off the set of the Kim Cattrall mannequin movie from the 80s. It's out of control. But anyway, that's WrestleMania 11.
That was WrestleMania 11. It was I'll give it this. It was mercifully short.
Yeah, I do want to thank Mark for picking something for us that was only wasn't even 2.5 hours.
Yeah, good for that, because like compared to the like 487 hours I spent watching Wrestle Rock 86, like this was, this felt like 5 or 6 hours only, so it was all right.
What are we gonna do for our next one? I think we should do that. I think we should do the ECW pay-per-view we went to.
Oh yeah, we should do that. Okay, so I guess our next one will be it's Living Dangerously 2000. Is that what it is?
Yes, Living Dangerously 2000. This is actually a famous wrestling show in wrestling lore because it has what many people consider the sickest bump of all time, involving New Jack and Vic Grimes from DeBaldi's. We were there live for it. We were there with that audience as we realized, oh, this is not a work. Those guys are actually hurt.
This is where New Jack broke his neck. We were there and we couldn't actually see the fall because we were there was a huge crowd of people and we were more towards the ring, but like we saw them fall up, but we didn't see them hit anything. And then like there was nothing for like a minute, and then all the lights came on, and we were like, oh, somebody's actually hurt. And they carted the old New Jack away, all the while his music played.
His music played the entire time. The fucking paramedics show up and New Jack's stupid music is playing the whole time.
Yeah.
By the way, that's gonna be awful. It's gonna be even worse watching. I don't even know. I'll be curious to see if the network has that. I know they have the show, but I don't know what they do with that dive. But not only are we gonna watch it, but because the network replaces all the ECW music because they don't want to pay royalties.
Oh shit! I wonder what the music is gonna be like.
It's like generic, like rap beat number 38. I've watched some New Jack matches on the network. It's terrible because they play through it. The song, one of his gimmicks was that the song played throughout his whole match, and so like the whole, like it's 25 minutes in this Danbury case of like, I mean that's obviously not the worst thing about what happened. That happened is that those two guys got seriously hurt, but yeah, so we'll do that. We'll watch Living Dangerously, which actually is probably a good show, although I think a lot of ECW stuff, crowd stuff, and some of the stuff they did, I don't think it's aged that well. So it'll be interesting to like go back and relive that now as an adult. And well, we were adults, but like as an older, wiser version of ourselves, and say like, oh,
Tom, we were in our 20s at that point. We were adults.
We were adults, but we weren't. We were still youths. We were still young men. Had not gone out and been broken by the world.
Who was at that show with us? Your brother and Phil, maybe?
Maybe Phil? Maybe was it Jay Forklift?
Maybe. I don't know.
Was not the show we ran into our high school friend Todd Napolitano at when he was on the ECW street team. That was a TV taping.
Yeah,
but
we have found we're gonna scour this pay-per-view and see if you can find us in the audience. There's a good chance that you'll be able to see us during the Dusty Rhodes Steve Corino thing if the cameras have followed them around the audience, because they were like right on top of us.
Yes. I actually have photos. I should go and find the photos. This was the old days when you had to take film. I had good photos of that bloody Steve Corino Dusty Rhodes thing. Anyway, we'll do that next week. We'll save our fun memories of getting bled on for next week or next time. But yeah, so if you want to watch along with us, this one won't be quite the suffering experience as all of our previous shows have been.
In my memory, this was a good show. So,
in my memory, this was a good show. But I'm sure that like I believe Balls Mahoney's on that show, and like some of that stuff has not aged well at all.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, I could see that. I'm sure Kid Cash is on there, and Danny Doring and Roadkill.
Yeah, don't worry. We will have bad things to say. Like, don't worry. This is not going to be a love fest. But I think there's also good matches. I think there's a three-way with Super Crazy and Tajiri. Oh, and Masato Tanaka isn't. I mean, there's good stuff on this show.
It's gonna be good. Jado and Geto are there.
That's right.
Actually, I think they might be fighting Danny Doring. I think they might be fighting Danny Doring and Roadkill though. So, but I remember that being a really good match. So maybe we will have less to complain about than normal.
Let's hope. All right.
Living Dangerously 2000. Catch us next time.
Living Dangerously 2000. Thank you for listening. If you want to find us online, I'm at TJ Breen on Twitter. closetofanxiety.tumblr.com has lots of wrestling content. I posted a link just today to a YouTube compilation of 6 hours of championship wrestling from Florida shows from 1983 and 1984. 6 hours. Kevin Sullivan, Devil Worshipper gimmick, Dusty Rhodes, Blackjack Mulligan, the One Man Gang, the Yellow Dog. Good stuff. closetofanxiety.tumblr.com. You want to find Joe?
And yeah, if you want to find me, you can just comment on this video, because that's the only place I'm ever going to check.
And we'll respond. Somebody will respond.
That's
Joe.
Right. I'll respond on YouTube. If you message me anywhere else, the chance of me responding has dropped precipitously. There is almost no chance of me opening Twitter unless something amazing happens, and that amazing thing is usually like I meant to open a different app and I accidentally opened Twitter.
Yeah. I'm always on Twitter, so if you want to shout at me on Twitter and defend Kevin Nash, please feel free. Or you want to join me in condemning Joe's ignorance of the Sidewalk Slam, the amazing Sidewalk Slam.
Yeah. Don't at me.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. This was fun. We will talk to you next time from Danbury, Connecticut, in the year of grace, 1990.
2000, Tom. 2000.
Jesus, you're right. 2000. I'm sorry.
What's the matter with you? We're done.
2000. We're done.
See you guys next time.